And this is Not Enough Podcast. Are we still sticking with that name, or Sam, you got any suggestions?
What if you renamed it Too Much Podcast?
Oh, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. We'll think about it. We'll think about it.
I think we got to stick with what we got now.
Let me know if you change it. I look forward to my royalty check in the mail.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Right. Of course. Obviously. Obviously, we have a guest on with us today. Her name is Sam Rochford. She is a folk artist and a former radio host, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's kind of similar area to like podcasting. I don't know, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, have you ever? Sorry, go ahead.
Podcasting is just less live.
Yeah.
But it's still radio.
Yeah.
That's true. That is pretty true. It's pretty much.
So, well, we're going to go ahead and start off with our first segment, which is Pop Face Off. And
our two shows is on Rick and Morty and Bojack Horseman. So
I have a quick radio Rick and Morty story / shout out before we start.
That sounds
When I was working at my first radio station ever, I was one of the only women that worked there, so they had me guest host on a lot of other shows. And one of them was this nerd culture show called The Diamond Exchange, and it was when the first season of Rick and Morty was on, and as part of their segment, they had me watch Rick and Morty for the first time and give my honest opinions of it. So I wouldn't have got into Rick and Morty if it wasn't for working in radio specifically.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
That's really awesome.
So you really did love the first episode of Rick and Morty?
Oh my God, it was so good. It's one of the smartest shows I've ever watched.
That's
agreed.
That's really agreed.
Yeah.
So when we talk about this face-off between Rick and Morty and Bojack Horseman, we're going to be focusing on mental health and how it's projected between animation and comedy.
Okay, cool.
So what are some of the things that you see in Rick and Morty this season dealing with mental health?
Well, I mean, this season they went to a family therapist without Jay. And I think it was... it wasn't super heavy because it was also the Pickle Rick episode,
of course,
where he turns himself into a pickle and kills a bunch of rats to make himself this big bionic man. But I love how they tied it together at the end when the therapist was basically like, you would rather deal with life and death situations than do the hard work of dealing with your family.
Right.
And I think that's something that, I mean, not everybody turns themselves into a pickle to avoid real life problems, but that's something that lots of people deal with, where they don't want to put in the hard work of going to therapy or dealing with mental health problems because it can be scarier than life and death sometimes.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. That was perfect.
You got any takes about how you feel?
Well, specifically with like Rick and Morty. So I feel like I totally agree with you, Sam. I think it's like Rick tries to justify like his like any kind of his criticisms about his like mental health. Like, he's kind of an alcoholic, and I think we.
There's no kind of about it.
It's true. Yeah, and I think he would probably be considered like definitely unstable, right? Like
that is true.
Yeah, he's not. He's
incredibly unstable. He puts himself and his family in danger all the time, and the world. I mean, he destroyed the first world that they were on and turned them into Cronenbergs, and then just took another place. And he said that he's done it before.
Yeah,
like he has no empathy for like human life. So there's probably some like sociopathy going on there too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I agree because I know they kind of touched on it with like Beth being a sociopath. Maybe like they've implied that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Her and Morty, all of them really are turning less into like they started out as pretty nice people and pretty normal people, even if they had their flaws. And as the seasons go on, they're all just turning into these like hardened, like versions of mini Ricks. Like Morty is becoming so much more intelligent and harder, and like he's doing these things that season 1 Morty would never do. And Beth is crazy, and Summer is crazy. Like everybody's just growing up and becoming not great people.
That is so true.
That's a really,
And touching back on like how Rick is, you can kind of tell that Rick like mental health is really unstable because you can tell like the disconnect he has between most of the family, because he really feels like at any point in time he can just leave and just discard them, and I feel like that's really a bad thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to replace your family,
because he always talks about how like he can just leave and like it's all right, but it's really like not all right because he really doesn't have like any kind of feelings between anybody except for Beth. As always been shown that like all the Ricks care about Beth, but they don't care about nobody else but Beth. That's kind of weird. Like,
yeah. Well, I think this Rick also cares about Morty too. Like he almost sacrificed himself in that episode. The what's it called? The Rickle in Time.
Yeah.
I think not all Ricks, and that's kind of where it gets confusing. Where like there's all these characters that are Rick, but the one that we follow along, I think, cares a little bit more about his Morty than other Ricks do.
That is true. Because I think I sent Brandon a video. I don't know if it's really his canon, but it was like the video. He said that he already switched this Morty out 4 times.
Right.
And like, we don't even know if does he like really care. Why is this Morty like different from all other Mortys that he probably already been through with? Like why this Morty like, he connects more with, and it's like his 4th Morty. I don't understand that. Like, does he just pick and choose who he cares about? Or is it like a real emotional character, like development that he actually cares about this Beth and this Morty and this family? Or does he just like doesn't care at all? Like,
I mean, I think he...
It's hard to say because I don't think he would even admit it to you if he knew what the answer was, because he's so weird about that stuff.
Do you think he's scared of like the whole fact of like caring about somebody, or does he just doesn't care?
Yeah, I think he's scared to care about people. I think that's why he's not a real person, but I think a lot of real people that have drinking problems drink to turn off big feelings. Or that's why they start drinking too much. At a certain point, it's a disease and it's not something that you can really help. But I think a lot of people will turn to substance abuse because they have big feelings that they don't want to deal with, like even positive ones, like caring about your family.
Wow.
Because it's too hard for some people.
I feel like they're gonna touch about this in the 4th season, just because the fact at the end of the last episode, like everyone seems like everybody's resolved and like cares, like, but like you can tell that Rick, it's like something about Rick at the end of the episode, like he doesn't like, you feel like he's about to leave, like he's not happy, like he doesn't care, like he feels like, because what's his name? The dad's name I forgot. Jerry. Jerry came back in the picture and everything.
Oh, sorry, what did you say?
I think that I think Beth is not the real Beth, and like the real Beth is out in space somewhere and she'll come back.
True. I swear, I think that's not the real Beth.
But
because she just seems so weird. Like she just seems like she's okay with everything now, just randomly.
Well, that could also happen with like a what's the word? Existential crisis. I don't know.
But like, I don't know. She just seemed like she just like up and just became like back in love with Jerry and everything. Like it was really random. It was a whole episode. Like just
but I think it makes sense.
They wouldn't build it up so much if it wasn't at least a factor.
Yeah.
Like it would be such a pairing if they were like, if she got that freaked out that she was the clone and that Rick was going to kill her once she figured it out. I think that's too much of a red herring for it to not be something.
I feel like they really like, if it really is true, they will touch about it like next season. Yeah. Like they'll probably have a whole episode about like the Beth that's out there doing something really crazy.
Yeah, this show is becoming so self-referential. Like you can't just sort of pick it up in the middle of a season for the first time, because there's so many references to other episodes. I think it's just going to get more and more like that as it goes on.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, in reference to Bojack Horseman, like, how do you think? What do you think the differences are in Bojack Horseman and the way they deal with mental health?
Oh, well, I think the episode, and I don't know any of the episode names because I watched them in order. I just binged it as hard as I could.
Same.
But the episode where, he also deals with heavy substance abuse and alcoholism. But the episode where he goes back to his family's summer home and fixes it up, it's so beautifully done. Where really you see the stuff that happened with his mom and his grandparents and his uncle who died in the war happening at the same time as Bojack's trying to fix up that house and dealing with his own stuff. And I don't think he knows that any of that stuff happened. I think we as the audience know. Yeah. But it makes his mother's horrible treatment of him make so much more sense because she was so damaged as a kid.
Exactly.
And the way that they touch on sort of inheriting your parents' trauma without fully understanding it.
Right.
I've never seen something done so beautifully, and it was in a cartoon about horses. It's so hard to explain to other people how deep and cool that was done because it's just a cartoon.
I know. I did not know this show was that deep. Yeah, I'm sorry, I've never seen Bojack Horseman before, so this is really new information to me. I didn't know the show was that deep.
Yeah, I'm the one who rallied for that show.
He's been trying to get me to watch the show forever. I just I never had time, but I'm probably gonna try to watch it.
It's really dark. They have a really great episode about gun control, too. Not about mental health, but about one of their actresses, because Bojack is an actor, but he's friends with this talent agent, and she's also a main character. And she is an actress on her roster that's in a movie where there's an automatic rifle, and it kills a bunch of people, and then a real mass shooting happens, and they're trying to figure out how to put the movie out even though all these people are riled up about gun control, and they just keep saying thoughts and prayers, but not actually dealing with any of the mental health stuff around mass shootings or about gun control or any of that stuff. It's very sort of true to real life.
Yeah, it's a perfect criticism.
Yeah.
So you didn't tell me none of this stuff.
Well,
Brandon.
okay. Well,
you just told me it was about a horse and acting. Okay. You didn't tell me about all these deep stuff and
I told you
real
it was about
life.
depression, man. I told you. It's an intense show. What were your thoughts of that? The episode where they kind of get in Bojack's head and there's that you hear his inner voice.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was really well done too.
Yeah, that was
because you spend the first couple of seasons just thinking that he's just a total F up and that he has these responsibilities, but he'll go drinking, and you see that he has really severe anxiety, and the voice inside his head is telling him horrible stuff all day long, and that's why he turns to drinking instead of getting the milk. Or his responsibilities for the day were so minor, and he just couldn't do it. I think Bojack Horseman and Rick and Morty both are very intelligent shows for cartoons,
right?
And Bojack Horseman especially does a lot to show mental illness in a way that I've never seen a show do before.
I completely agree. Okay, so I don't know, have you seen either the show Better Things or You're the Worst?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so there are two shows on FX that really touch on it's a kind of a similar concept. It's more mental health and comedy as opposed to mental health and animation and comedy. But I mean, it's the same concept. They I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the characters on You're the Worst deals with depression for an entire season. They establish it at the beginning of the season, and then they kind of tease it out, and then it becomes, I don't know, it becomes one of the main plot points for the rest of the season, and then they continue it into the current season. So they kind of show how it's depression is not a thing that just it's I don't know, a one and done type of thing, I don't know. I think the best.
No, it's pervasive, and you can deal with depression through more than one quote unquote season in real life.
Right.
I think that's so cool, and it's so important, and I think that sort of representation is important to make it feel normal. If you're sitting there with depression and you don't know anybody that has depression, and you've only seen it in older movies and books, it just seems like something that's scary and something that you need to be locked up for. And I think having a really accurate representation of depression on TV is important, even if it's a horse.
Right. Yeah.
That's
true.
It's cartoon.
Yeah.
And do you notice that on FX they do like a lot of mental health?
Yeah, like
even with Sunny in Philadelphia and Atlanta talks about mental health. Like they do like deal with a lot about that. Like I just noticed.
Is FX just like the most like in depth like
it makes you like every show is real. Like makes you feel real.
It's true. Like I've never watched a show on there that hasn't like hit me like really hard. You know. Yeah. Like the recent shows.
They're stepping up. Even Legion.
Oh
that's
yeah,
like all around mental health.
Wow, I forgot about. Oh man, I love that show. I forgot about that.
So dealing with the pop face off, which one do you think does better dealing with mental health and like how it's projected, either Rick and Morty or BoJack Horseman?
I would say BoJack Horseman does a better job. I think Rick and Morty touches on it.
Yeah.
But BoJack Horseman really, really deals with it, and the art behind like the decisions about how that they deal with mental health and how they show you mental health and like sort of especially the generational episode I thought was just so cool, and it's something that I've never seen done before. I think Rick and Morty doesn't ignore it, but BoJack just talks about it more.
Yeah, I agree completely.
I agree too. I haven't seen BoJack Horseman, but it sounds like it's a clear winner. So today's face-off winner is BoJack Horseman.
All right, nice. BoJack Horseman.
You got to. That's your homework.
All right.
All right. So usually we have a segment next called Cultural Update, but since we have you on here as a guest, we actually just have some questions that like we think our audience would be interested in that we want to know.
Sure.
All right.
So you being a former radio host, what made you switch from being a radio host to being a singer, or was that always your passion?
So it actually, being a musician actually came first. When I was living in Boston, I live in Nashville now, but when I was in Boston, I was playing local shows, and I had never really released anything officially, but I was playing a lot, and I was posting on YouTube a lot. And I was being interviewed on a radio station called WEMF, an internet show, about a show that I was playing live later that week. And I got there, and the host had sort of a meltdown on air. It's internet radio, so you could get away with technically saying anything, but he talked about substance abuse and was really combative with me and just said some stuff that was really inappropriate. So I had a meeting with the general manager afterwards where he was like, I'm so sorry about that. Like, we're not going to have that episode archived for people to listen to. Like, it's not going to happen again. That guy's not going to work here anymore. And I was like, that was super unprofessional, but I really like this radio station, and I think that you handled this really well. And, I know that you have an opening because that guy just got let go, but could I have a job here? And I didn't have any experience, and I didn't know how to work a soundboard. I didn't know how to do any of it, but I got a once-a-week show where I got to play whatever music I wanted and talk about whatever I wanted. I think really they just needed more women to work there, so because I showed an interest, they let me do it. But I fell into it very randomly. And I was doing music first, and then when I moved here to Nashville to take music more seriously, I had an internship at 6:50 a.m., the WSM, which is the station that hosts the Grand Ole Opry, which was really fun. So that was another, I just applied to a bunch of random jobs, and I was so lucky to get a job that was that cool.
That is so amazing.
And then because it was an internship, it ended at a certain point, and I always came here to pursue music first, so that's what I kept doing.
Right. Man,
that's pretty crazy.
That's
really
I love that. That's the perfect backstory. What?
Yeah,
it's almost cinematic.
That's a character development moment.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
I don't know.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I nailed down the story because I have to talk about it so much for radio interviews.
Right.
I think not to peel back the curtain, I just think I'm good at telling the story. It wasn't that cool.
So why'd you choose to sing folk? What drew you to that area?
Well, my earliest sort of taste in music came from my dad, and he's also the reason that I play guitar, and that was the type of music that he really liked growing up. And folk music has obviously evolved so much from the 60s and 70s where he developed his music taste, but some of the first songs I learned to sing and play on the guitar were Bob Dylan or Jim Croce and stuff like that. So that really influenced my taste in music as I grew up through middle school and high school and developed my own taste. So that's why that's the type of music that I grew up and enjoyed. So that's why I like to play it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I was wondering, like, so I don't know, what are some like recent like folk artists like that? Because I find like it's difficult for like to find like newer folk artists. Like, I don't know, where should like people go to find out more about folk music? Like,
I think that there's this interesting like splinter off of country music recently called Americana music, which is really like country infused with another genre, and it's such a melting pot of all these really fantastic artists. Like if you infuse rock and country, it can be called Americana. If you infuse folk and country, it can be called Americana. If you infuse blues and country, it can be called Americana. So there's a lot in that sort of umbrella term, but there's a lot of really good folk music coming out of it. And I think if you want to hear some great stuff, you should look up the Secret Sisters. They're fantastic. They're a sister duo originally from Alabama, but I think they're a Nashville native now. And they sound like the Everly Brothers, but they're chicks. They're so talented. I cry every time I see them live, and I've seen them live like 5 or 6 times, and I just embarrass myself every time. Their voices are so beautiful. You should also look up Amanda Shires. She just won Emerging Americana Artist of the Year, something like that. Some award last month for just being amazing. There's a lot of really good folk music coming out under this like Americana umbrella term, and a lot of it's coming out of Nashville.
That's crazy.
Do you consider yourself like more like I don't know, I guess maybe pop folk or maybe indie folk?
I would consider myself indie folk because I think my music is so weird. Honestly, people can call it whatever they want. I've had people call it country music. I've had people call it pop punk before. Like, I just write what I want to write, and you can call it whatever you want. It's so hard to fit it into a category because someone will always disagree with it.
Right. That's
some of the best music when like people can't like really like
pin it down.
Yeah. It makes you like more like more your own person other than everybody else. You can like show that you're like on a personal level, and more people will like your music just because they can like understand you more on a personal level, more than just a mainstream appeal.
And I think if you paint yourself into a corner with a genre, you can stifle yourself creatively. I've seen it a lot since moving here with traditional country. And there's a lot of really great traditional country. If you've never gotten into it, don't be afraid of it, just because it can be a little yoke-y sometimes. But modern artists, if you want to be a traditional country artist, I think you can paint yourself in a corner too much about like what you wear. Like you have to wear the sort of bedazzled suits and the cowboy hats, or you can't have chords that are too weird. You can't talk about like current events in traditional country music. People just want to hear 3 chords and the truth. I think it can be hard with any genre, but I just think of that one specifically. If you paint yourself into a corner being like, well, I'm just a pop artist, so I can only do this. Or I'm just this kind of artist, so I can only do this. Just write what you want to write.
So what do you wish more people knew about folk music?
I just wish more people would listen to it. I think I never want to be that type of person to like, I don't know, get angry about like the state of pop music today. But I think that the radio is oversaturated with sort of the same 15 artists.
Right.
And nothing wrong with pop music. If it's something that you enjoy, then you should chase your bliss and listen to whatever you like. But there's so much good music being made on this like independent level,
right,
that isn't getting radio play because it costs money to get radio stations to play your songs.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I wish more people were listening to it. I wish more people would give it a chance, and it was easier to get it out there.
Yeah, that's
so. What's some stereotypes that you think like people have for folk music, and like what's your opinion about it?
What's my opinion about folk music?
Cause like the stereotypes. Are there any like stereotypes that you think you can think of about folk music that people have? And like, what's your opinion about it?
Oh, sure. I guess the one that comes to mind first is that we don't all smoke weed. There's a lot of substance abuse in all types of music, but there's a lot of sobriety too. And it's the sort of thing where I don't ever want to make someone feel bad for something that they enjoy, but it's not all just hippies and stoners. It's a lot of musicians are the most thoughtful people that I know, and some of the most sort of politically up to date and write about stuff like that.
Yeah.
About stuff that they care about, and it's not all just like wearing a flower crown and not having shoes on. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into folk music, even though there's this like hippie thing associated with it.
Yeah, I think that's weird that there's like I don't even know like why that is, like why it's associated with like hippie culture. I think
in the 60s and 70s, folk music was so associated with like counterculture and like real hippies,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's definitely evolved quite a bit. For example, I don't know, Lady Gaga's like most recent album, I think it kind of veers into folk a little bit. And I think that kind of ties back to what you were saying with like artists not like wanting to get boxed in.
I mean, Lady Gaga is so incredible. She's a chameleon. I mean, all of her stuff has this sort of underlying pop vibe to it, even when she does go closer to folk or go closer to rock and roll, but she can do anything. I mean, she put out this album, Joanne, which is close to like country folk music. And then the same year she shared a stage with Metallica at some awards show.
Oh, yeah,
and she can do it all. She's amazing. Or she can wear a meat dress and pull that off too. Like she can really do anything.
So when you was like a kid or like even now, like what's some of your biggest influences like to like help you develop your music?
My taste is really eclectic, and if there's any sort of aspiring creative people out there, I would say that's the best advice I have for developing your own tools for writing, is to just listen to all different types of music, not just music that sounds like the music you want to make. I obviously listen to a lot of folk and a lot of Americana. I see the Secret Sisters every time they're in town, and I cry in their faces way too much. But I also listen to rap music, and I listen to a lot of indie music and traditional country and pop music and sort of everything all over the spectrum. I love live music, especially if I've never heard of the band before. I love experiencing a band for the first time on stage because I think that that's a really inspirational thing, and it's an easy way to fall in love with an artist.
Right, because they like artists, like when you're saying live, like I feel like they really like artists really bare their souls, like they're putting themselves out there completely. Like it's I just think it's really important, like to see artists live.
Absolutely. And I mean, not to get on my soapbox about the music industry, but these days artists don't really make money off of album sales anymore because there's so much streaming music. And if you get, what's the math? Somebody explained this to me the other day. If you get 1 million streams on Spotify, you get about $8,000. And 10 years ago, if you got 1 million, singles sold, you made over $1 million. Right. So the music industry is so different that artists make most of their money from live shows now.
Oh, wow.
So that's just an important thing to just go support local music and live music as much as you can. But, I do think that's true. If you carried a song from inception, whether you wrote it by yourself or with somebody else. It means something to you through the studio, and then to play it live in front of a bunch of people who know all the words to it. It's just like such a cool emotional thing. I love seeing live music.
Wow, that's really awesome. Well, Sam, I want to thank you again for being on our podcast. You are a great guest.
Oh, you guys are so sweet. This was so fun. I was like not expecting to spend my day talking about mental health and cartoons.
we like to, we like to keep it
different.
Yeah, we like to mix it up.
So, is there any way like people can reach out to you, like any kind of social media or anything you have coming up currently that you want to talk about?
Yes, I want to plug, I've been doing this crazy challenge this month. It's October as we're recording this, and I challenged myself to write a song and post a video every single day in the month of October. Oh. And it's been crazy, to say the least. I missed yesterday. It was my second day that I missed all month because I lost my voice. Oh. Because I was at a live show and I was screaming too much. But every other day I've written a song and I've posted a YouTube video, so you can find me. If you search Sam Rochford, my last name is spelled Rochford. And if you go to samrochford.com, there's links to all my social media there.
Wow. That's really awesome. Well, yeah. Thanks again for being on our podcast. And obviously, we're gonna be looking out for all of your new music. I like your style, so like I'm really interested to see what you do next.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Find me on Facebook, and we'll stay friends.
All right, awesome.
All right.
So this has been Not Enough Podcast. I'm Brandon,
and this is Trajan. You can never have enough.